Welcome back to the Total Focus Podcast. I'm your host, Paul. Our special guest this week is a former Miss Delaware and a former Miss Black America. Brittany Lewis is on the show today. She's a well-spoken person, highly educated. I would absolutely recommend, if you want to learn more about Miss Black America and learn more about the Miss America organization, you should stay tuned. And welcome to the show, Brittany.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Well, we are so absolutely blessed to have a double title holder winner, a former Miss Delaware, a former Miss Black America. It's totally an honor. Do you think that having the opportunity to win so many big titles has really helped you in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously first and foremost, thinking about Miss America as one of the largest providers of scholarships for women has certainly come into use for me. I've obtained more than $30,000 from the Miss America organization that went towards school, and I am a
Congratulations.
PhD. Thank you. I am a PhD student, so all of the money that I can get towards school, towards undergraduate loans, is extremely useful. And then of course the interviews. I always say there's never, ever since I've been a part of the Miss America organization, there's never been a job or an opportunity that required an interview that I didn't get. And I think a lot of that has to do with my ability to engage with others from all different backgrounds, lifestyles, orientations, and still be able to connect with them and find common ground and be able to clearly articulate to others why they should hire me or choose me or why I would be great for a job. So I'm forever grateful for what the pageant world has offered me.
Do you feel that the organization in the patent industry in general is very open to people of ethnicity? Do you feel welcomed?
As a person of color, yeah, I think um, that's tough,
I
right?
know, I
So
know,
I,
I know. I I,
yeah,
I have someone
I
that can
do
really
think they
talk, so
are.
I wanted to ask a hard question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I do think they've become much more inclusive over the years. Obviously, believe they've got to the bandwagon very, very late. And we think about how late some of the African American or queens of color have been crowned.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, once we think outside of an African American space and we start looking at, well, like, in some of these predominant organizations, how many, you know, Hispanic women have won, or how many Asian women have won. And I think that we see room and area for more growth and for more diversity. But of course, that's why I'm also a fan of specific pageants that cater to a specific identity. So, for example, the Miss Black America pageant. I received a lot of critical pushback, especially from my hometown in a lot of ways, where they're like, "Well, you went to Miss America. Why would you do Miss Black America?" And I always say, there's nothing wrong with us being a part of the predominant pageants, but I also don't think there's anything wrong with us also being a part of a pageant that allows us to, talk about our identity, our culture, our issues individually. And there are Black pageants, there are Indian pageants, there are pageants for Hispanic women, there are pageants that really cater to everybody and their own identity, race, or ethnicity. And I think that that's okay.
Well, I agree with you. I think that it's important that we don't minimize anyone and allow you to express your individually. And if you feel that you need as a person in as an African American that needs to have their own pageant, I think you should have your own pageant, and I think you should make that the best pageant possible. But I also want to definitely highlight you and say that you don't have to. I mean, you're an absolutely delightful person. As just a short time we talking, you're very educated. You speak very well, so you would do very well just in a normal pageant. So,
Yeah, I love them both.
all right. Well, what? How did you get into pageants? Were you did you start doing dance or singing when you were younger, and then you got into it, or did you? Because it sounds like your education is your main goal. So you're doing it. You said specifically the way I took it. You're doing the American systems because you're getting college tuition out of it. So is it was it because, oh, I'm gonna do it, when I'm older because I need this, or were you doing pageants before that?
Um, well, I have been dancing since I was little, and there wasn't really a specific connection to pageants. I have a best friend who had competed in a local, and it was my senior year of undergrad, and I went to school out of state, and I was only partially funded, or only half of my tuition was covered, and I still needed some additional. Additional monies to go towards any debt that I had from school. And, someone said that Miss America would be a great space to do that. So yeah, I really did get started not so much as a quote unquote pageant girl, but more so as a young lady that was looking for an opportunity to make some additional scholarship money. I know when I did my first local, there's so many unwritten rules to pageants that I didn't know, but luckily I still walked away with $1,000 for overall interview and another $1,000 for overall swimsuit. And it's kind of in those moments where I'm like, wow, I don't even have to win to obtain scholarship money. I don't even have to be that good. I just need to bring something to the table. And at that point, I was hooked because I'm like, this is a great, great, and easy way for me to make some scholarship money. And then, of course, after that first pageant, someone in the audience said, hey, I think you got what it takes. Let me just show you a few different things, how to stand, put a little more makeup on, change the color of your outfit, and I think we have a winner. And she really helped me, continue to grow in the pageant industry, but um, also helped me obtain additional scholarship money because obviously I was getting money from interviews and things like that. But once you start winning and placing, then you start to obtain even more scholarship money.
Oh
So
yeah, of course. Do you find it? Do you find this is the best way for a woman to get scholarship money? Like, do you find like it's an equal trade off? Because you still got to buy, if someone doesn't won't buy it for you or donate it to you, you still got to buy a dress. Um, you still got to buy an interview dress. There are still some costs going into it. Do you still make more out of it than you put into it?
I think it depends. I think everybody's different. When I did my first pageant, I've been doing dance, so I used an old costume, an old dance costume. I used my prom dress. I used an interview offer from my closet, and of course, no, I didn't win, but I did still leave with 2 grand. So I say that to say that it's not impossible, especially on a local level, to still obtain some type of scholarship money with materials that you potentially already have in your closet. Now, when we're talking about the politics around winning, that's kind of a different story. And I think it can be work and think if you put in the effort to try and fundraise. Maybe if you don't have the means or if you don't have the funds. But yeah, I mean, of course, if you're in it to win it, you're going to have to invest. And ideally, the goal is that you're going to get double or triple the investment out when you're done. But it really depends. Everyone has a different walk, a different financial background, different amount of time they can or cannot allocate to raising funds for pageantry. And some people just might not like pageantry, right? I already liked the stage because I was used to dancing. So, different strokes for different folks.
Well, that's what I guess I was getting to. So if you're already used to being on the stage and you have some of the pieces that would comprise a pageant, then if you're even remotely ready to do the interview and poised enough to do that, then you're definitely an advocate to just go for it because you get a couple dollars. If you have a couple of the components, you're not out anything. So it sounds like at least your first pageant was a 100% win because you weren't out anything.
The Miss America organization in general is, you know, you, the scholarship money is there and the entrance fee, right? So a lot of other pageants have these astronomical entrance fees. So, and a lot of the times they're not giving away the same amount of scholarship money. The nice thing about Miss America is really just a small donation, $100 to, Children's Miracle Network, which is going to a good cause. And if you get 10 people to give you $10, you have your entrance fee. And then the rest is up to you to just win the scholarship money. So it's a much better trade off than some of the other organizations.
Looking at it that way, it definitely the proposition to paying off your schooling definitely seems to be a great way for women to do that. So, I mean, if you put it in that context, if you have a little bit of poise, you're used to being on stage, and you have the dress components, then why not do it? So it sounds
Right.
like you're right. So you're already in college at this point. So you didn't do any competitions in your high school years or in your junior high school years when it comes to
I did one local pageant when I was in sixth or seventh grade in
okay.
my little town in Brigantine, New Jersey. That was my first and last pageant until I was 21 years old and a senior in college and
Did
undergrad.
did you just get like a bad taste or it wasn't your thing at that point?
Honestly, I don't know. I guess it just didn't really seem accessible. The idea of, my only kind of interaction or understanding of pageantry at that time was what I saw on television and going to the Miss America parade as a child in Atlantic City. Um, but I didn't know. I'm like, this thing seems so far away. How do I join it? How do I become a part of it? You don't realize actually this is rather accessible and you can actually just go online and register right here and, compete in a pageant virtually. Several pageants are held all year long.
So I guess I mean the short way to say it is that if you just have any interest, you should at least try it. Would you say that you've built a lot of friends as well?
I, Absolutely. I always, some of my closest friends are through the pageant system. When I think about my relationship with like Ryan Richardson, again, we met during my first state pageant. Or thinking about, I just left my Miss America's wedding. So I was just at Kira's wedding and, thinking about that experience and having all the girls there. And you just become very, very grateful for the relationships that, you build through through the pageant industry and you continue to hold on to afterwards. And they're some of the best, most beautiful, brightest women on the planet.
Well, I mean, to me, it sounds like then pageants are not negative in any way. So the people that are naysayers, they really don't understand the total the idea of what a pageant is for. I mean, it sounds like totally for you, this has been a 100% positive. Doing the Miss America organization has allowed you to go and become a well trained young lady. You said you were working on your master's or your doctorate right now.
My doctorate.
Your doctorate. So, do you think financially that you would be in the same spot? I'm sure you would not be on the same footing right now, right?
Yeah. So luckily, my PhD is fully funded through the university. But I
Congratulations.
still have, thank you, but I do still have undergraduate loans. So
Okay.
the organization was definitely useful in taking care of those undergraduate loans. And of course, they rack up very quickly when you're going to school out of state. So
Yeah.
very blessed. But yeah, in terms of my experience just in general with pageants and why people should do them, um, I guess my response is why not? And what are the critiques of the naysayers, right? It depends on what their critiques are. If your critique is, hey, I'm never going to be feel comfortable in front of a large audience, um, then yeah, maybe pageants aren't for you. I would still say, hey, give it a try. You might grow to love it. It might help you learn and grow in a space where there are a whole bunch of other people watching. But yeah, to each his own. Some people recognize I'm never going to feel comfortable in that space, and that's just what it is. And I think that that's okay. Um, so it really depends on I guess, what the complaints are, or why the naysayers are against pageants.
How do you describe? Because I really want to give you an opportunity to talk about Miss Black America and being a national title holder because I think that's really important because that's a rare gem there, and I'd love for you to at least speak a little bit. What's the difference between like the feeling of being a state title holder and a national title holder? What's that? What's that? Like, what are the roles and what are the responsibilities that are different? Are they the same?
Yeah, I would say they're pretty similar. Just of course, as a national title holder, you have a much larger audience. So, as Miss Delaware, I'm very well known throughout the state of Delaware, and I'm, spending every day driving, from the top to the bottom of the state, doing Delaware-based things, becoming very familiar with state politicians. But I think when you're dealing with a national title holder, it's the same type of experience, just on a national scale. So obviously, the travel is much different. I'm not just getting in my car; I'm getting on airplanes,
Right.
and I'm traveling all over the United States. So I think the fascinating part, and probably the most exciting aspect of transitioning from a state to a national title holder, would be the travel, right? As exhausting as it is, it's also a great opportunity to see the rest of the United States.
Did you feel that you made more of a difference being a state title holder um, than doing a national because you were able to build those relationships more? Because I don't know how you feel, but I always felt that um, it takes time and to build a really strong connection and to build that trust, and it's not something that just happens overnight. So how
Yeah, I mean, I definitely believe that was the case in terms of building relationships with organizations, with politicians, and things of that sort, because you see them regularly. You're around them. You're able to really build that rapport. Whereas when you're traveling on a national level, you might only be somewhere for 3 days or a day, um, and you're not going to continuously or repeatedly see the same people. Um, so yeah, I mean, I would say that's pretty accurate.
okay,
Sure.
so both experiences were positive then.
Yes.
Okay, and would you say that um, that the state level was a good way to be prepared for a national level? Like you definitely need to go through that state level, just like you need to go through that local and learn how to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there are certain things that you learn during each stage of pageantry, and I think that, I would be very fearful of the young lady who, for some reason, you know, went straight to a national title and really had national level obligations of traveling, right? Because the average person might be exhausted or get tired or just not want to deal, not want to go. But I think that you learn very on that there are so many young ladies who would love to be in your shoes,
Hmm.
and it's in those moments that you have to say, I'm not going to take this for granted. I might be exhausted, but I'm still going to put a smile on my face. I don't care if this is the 100th time that I've been asked what my year is like. I'm going to smile and tell this person all about it, regardless. And I think that that's an important part of pageantry that you have to learn, and you don't want to take for granted.
I just wanted to take 1 second from this great interview and talk about our sponsor of the week, Mid Atlantic Video and Photography Productions. No matter if you're planning a wedding, a special event, or you just need an amazing headshot, they are the team to get the job done. You can reach out to them at 443 422 3830. Again, that's 443 422 3830. Or you can go right to their website at mavpp.com. Now let's get right back to the show and listen to this great interview. Miss Black America, how did you hear about the organization? So it was it 2 years after being Miss Delaware, right?
Uh,
Or a year after Miss Delaware?
3 years.
3 years.
I was
Okay.
crowned technically Miss Delaware 2014, and then I was Miss Black America 2017. Yeah, 2017,
And
2018.
congratulations on both of them because winning a title in any fashion is great, but winning a national title is huge. So congratulations on that. Big time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, yeah. So how did you hear about it? Because one, I think it's like we started off the conversation. It's really important that you have an organization that will support you know individual cultures. So it's great that there's one there that's specifically that you're not going to be jibbed based on your ethnicity, and you're going to be given a fair shot. So we know
Yeah,
so.
absolutely. Um, well, I found out about I had heard about it before. I wasn't sure if it was still operating. So I just did a quick Google search and come to find out they were still holding pageants. So I was very excited to participate for a number of reasons. So, I am a PhD candidate and my research is based on Atlantic City, specifically
Oh,
1964 through 1980. And we know the pageant was started in Atlantic City in 1968 as a form of protest. So, literally, my research and my scholarship as an academic was going hand in hand with the pageant that I was interested in. So, I thought it was a great way for me to not only continue to participate in pageantry, but to also have a more intimate look at something I was fascinated by in regards to my research, which of course is the experience of African Americans in Atlantic City during that time period. And you can't possibly talk about Atlantic City in the 1960s, in the late 1960s, without talking about the role of that pageant.
Okay. Well, I mean, you just gave me a huge education. So they no, I love to I love history, so this is something very fascinating. So one, they have no correlation with the Miss American organization. Is that correct? Is from what you just said that they were a
Correct.
protest.
They were actually started as a form of protest because by 1968 the Miss America organization still did not have a state title holder that was an African American woman. So
Wow.
it's 1968, and there is still not a single black woman that has said, I have touched foot on the Miss America stage. So as a result, Jay Morris Anderson, as well as the women competing, said, we're going to create our own pageant where we recognize that we are beautiful and that we are talented,
You
and we
are.
don't need a mainstream pageant to recognize that in us. We can recognize and celebrate that amongst ourselves.
Well, God bless her for doing that, and God bless her for having the courage. Because I know for a fact that anyone who does something that's outside the norm gets the most criticism. So God bless her, and God bless everyone that really started that. Because without that, you wouldn't have had the opportunity. So, you need someone to be the brave um, person going out and being the one to found something. So,
Yeah, it was very controversial. It was very interesting. You see, kind of, they held it the exact same night as the Miss America 1969
oh,
pageant
really?
in
Ooh.
Atlantic City. Yep,
That's a poke.
other
That's a
side of the boardwalk at the Ritz Carlton.
that's a poke.
So it was very, very strategic, and it got picked up by the television station as well. So
Oh,
it
she
was
got a
very much
TV.
so
She
like
got a
we will
TV.
do it. Yes,
Wow.
it was very much so. We will do this at the exact same time, and we're really taking a stand. And it's interesting because literally just 2 years later, they in 1970 is when they crowned the first Black women to compete on the national level.
And I would have to argue that without her being in their face, that would have still not occurred for several years after that.
Absolutely. It's
So
interesting to think, we don't get Vanessa Williams all the way until the 1980s.
I
And
know.
even then, if we're talking about the politics of aesthetic, you're talking about someone who's light skinned, who has
Mm-hmm.
green eyes. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
she has a very, very, very racially ambiguous or mixed aesthetic to an extent. So it's interesting that not only was a black woman not crowned until the 1980s, but the aesthetic of the black woman that was crowned is also very interesting to note.
It still fit into their comfort level, which is such a shame because um Miss America should be the most diverse, comparable, educated, most um,
Absolutely.
outspoken woman that can go into a room and just wow somebody just by just able to talk to people and be able to form and really be able to go to Capitol Hill and influence every single politician. So, I mean, that's what
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't think of the young lady as a color. I think of her as someone who's really, really confident and someone that can just go in there and wow. And I don't think that at this point, I hope we don't have that problem anymore because, but it's really important that we highlight and um, we give the Miss Black America organization an opportunity to thrive too, because we also want to make sure that we don't allow ourselves to go backwards because it is a perfect fact, and you're studying history, so we are doomed to repeat ourselves if we do not learn from the past. So we must continue to strive to do better.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Was there anything specifically that you focused that you definitely wanted to change or focus on when it was your year as Miss Black America?
Um, Different from when I was competing in the Miss America system.
Or just in general, now that you had a national platform, was there something that you really wanted to try and help and that you were focusing on?
Yeah, I mean, I was, of course, continuing my work with domestic violence awareness. I went to a ton of different events, held fundraisers with the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. But I also, of course, as Miss Black America, wanted to speak about Black issues. And of course, being a woman of color in a predominantly, white organization, historically white institution like Miss America, although there was more diversity when we competed, there wasn't a whole lot, right?
Right?
And of
Absolutely.
course, it was a bit taboo. This was the same time things were happening in Ferguson with Mike Brown. And I know, obviously, the tough part with the Miss America organization is that, in order to qualify, in order to win the pageant, you have to be able to have a 10-minute political interview where they're asking you a series of very difficult, very potentially controversial questions, right? And they want to be able to see, does this girl have a brain? Can she put a sentence together? Does she have opinions? And can she articulate those opinions in a way that isn't offensive, but does take a clear stance on it and does back up that stance with some type of substantial data. And it's interesting that, I always excelled in the interview portion. It's always been the best part of competition for me. I've always thoroughly enjoyed it. And I've always held very, very strong opinions. And of course, race would come up in those interviews.
Of
But
course.
the second that you're crowned, to talk about race, especially during such a polarizing time, was a bit taboo. And I think what is very exciting about, an all Black pageant is that I don't have to be fearful and I don't have to be afraid to talk about issues that are related to race or related to the Black community. And quite frankly, that is a part of my identity, regardless of whether potentially a sponsor, has a different political opinion than me. The reality is when we're talking about, people's lives and we're talking about the way in which race affects people's lives, as a woman of color, that's something that I experience every day. So asking me as a title holder, no matter what organization I'm in, to then be silent about something that's, one, very important, two, that's personal, is very difficult. And you don't have to worry about those type of things when you're in an all Black organization.
And see, that's where having an all black organization is so good, and you can push for change in the national organization, and that you can make that so that eventually, with enough courage and push and effort, they will not. You won't have to be that way, because the whole point eventually, I hope you feel that you are an equal in 100 in every single way, because I hope you feel that the reason why the organization exists, because like we addressed, but if we finally meet all the requirements that you feel 100% equal, and we can all play together. I mean, I hope that's the I mean the I think that would be the idea. But I also believe that you should highlight people of, of individual race too, because we highlight, you know, be honest, we highlight people of Caucasian too much. So, but I think it's important to have. I mean, am I on the right way? What you're thinking, or do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal is always certainly for, Miss America or Miss USA, one of these kind of huge pageant organizations that have been around for a while, to have diversity and to be inclusive. And I think, of course, that's ultimately the goal. But unfortunately, I think it's going to be a long time before that happens. And the reason why I say that is more of like a nuanced perspective. And I think I say that to say, yes, there are Black women or women of color who are able to participate in these organizations, but their ability to succeed and to obtain crowns
Exactly,
is often based around still a European
exactly,
normalcy.
and that's
So,
wrong.
okay, is this person truly different, or is this someone who is a person of color that has assimilated in a way that is very similar to the rest of the white contestants? And what do I mean by that? So I mean, is her, are you crowning women with natural hair? Are
Exactly.
you crowning dark skinned women? Are you crowning women who have a different diction, who maybe are engaging in African American vernacular? Or are you only, crowning women who sing opera, who can talk about their handicap on the golf course, and who shy away from more controversial racial topics? You know what I mean? At what
Mm-hmm.
what what is the standard by which we are crowning these women of color? Who is setting that standard?
I,
Are they just a black Barbie? Are they very similar to the other contestants? Or are these women truly, truly diverse and different? And I think until we see that, there's still going to be a need for, um, you know, all black or all Hispanic or all Indian
no,
pageants per se.
Brittany, I absolutely 100% agree with you with that. Um, I really think that I feel as a white man, I feel bad that my culture has influenced the black culture in America, that women that are black feel they have to put a wig on. I mean, if you love your hair and you want to wear it natural, you should wear it natural. And I hope that anyone who's listening to our show that is of African American descent and they wear a wig and they don't wear a wig. I mean, I hope you feel that way too, because like you shouldn't hide something. Like if you love your hair, wear it the way it
Yeah.
is, you know?
The tough part with black women, just historically, so it's interesting. When I was an undergrad, my undergraduate research was actually around African American women and what they choose to do with their hair. And so often it's not even a matter of like, oh, we don't like our hair, or we don't want to wear our hair natural, as much as it is like the number one complaint filed with the EEOC, the Equal Employment
Opportunity.
Opportunity Commission, or something. I can't
Yeah,
think of the
you
exact
got it right.
acronym.
No, you got it right.
Um, but the number one complaint filed by black women in the 1990s was discrimination by businesses around their hair. So, for example, if you were an airline stewardess, it was if you wore braids, it was considered to be an ethnic hairstyle that was not appropriate in the workplace. And I can't tell you how many countless stories I've heard of black women who have worn their natural hair. Perhaps they were a hostess at a restaurant, or they were in some type of position of where they were being hired for their aesthetic. And if they changed their aesthetic or wore their natural hair, they were reprimanded. They were told they needed to straighten it. I know I could speak personally to my experiences in relation to that. So, for example, um, I cut all my hair off and went natural before, because right now we're seeing this kind of natural, like black
Yes, we
women's
are.
natural hair revolution, where a lot
Yes.
more women are wearing their natural hair. But I did it before this revolution even happened, right? And I was on my dance teams. I was on my university's dance team, and I remember I cut all my hair off. I wore it in a short natural fro. And the first thing that my coach said was, "You need to put some chemical in that. I don't know what you just did." Basically saying, like, you need to straighten your hair and put some extensions back in and get it together.
I don't understand
Um,
why people think that that's not rude. Like you just my thing is like you think before you speak. Like I
but it is just such a common thing. Even we're seeing now with locks, right? So many businesses, the ability to discriminate or not hire someone based on locking their hair. And again, this is what I mean when I say like European standards of normalcy. So, yes, we have different hair textures. Our hair is tightly coiled, our hair naturally will lock. Whereas maybe our European counterparts, that's not the truth, because the hair is much finer. And it's not to say, to each his own, but just recognizing that what is normal or in one community might not be normal in the other. And that's okay, but to tell people, hey, you can't wear your hair the natural way that it grows out of your head, because we don't deem it, it's different from us, and we don't deem it to be professional or beautiful. Again, who is setting the standards of professionalism? And what are those standards based on?
well, Brittany, I will make a pledge to you, and I hope any of the no here. This is really important because I wanted to show how much I do not think that hair matters when it comes to making money, because business is about making money and making customers happy. I will make a pledge to you. Whoever I hire of ethnicity, I will never criticize, judge them, or require them to do anything to their hair. And whoever I hire of ethnicity of any kind can wear their hair. The only thing I ask is that, just like any Caucasian, keep it clean, don't not wash your hair, but I will never judge. I never ask them to put a wig on or ever put um relaxer in. I would never
Well,
do
that's
that.
a beautiful thing.
So I take the pledge, and I hope any other business owner that's listening will please not be someone that will judge other people for having different hair, because If you choose to judge someone else, then they judge you back. So I don't like fingers being pointed back at me. So don't point fingers back at other people. So well, see, these are the important things that are still issues that need to be, and that's just the perfect reason why you need to have a pageant that really highlights that and also gives you an opportunity to be the vocal point of your community. Did you feel um, that you were definitely one of the key um, speakers of your community? Did you feel that obligation or responsibility?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think the reality is, uh, as a national title holder and someone that is a national title holder for a particular group of people, there is a lot of pressure for you to make sure that you are um, being very thoughtful with the words that you speak. Absolutely.
Do you think that going through that experience has definitely made you a better person? It sounds like it's definitely helped you from your schooling perspective because you were studying that. But do you think that overall, do you think you're a better person because of that?
Of course. I think through my time as Miss Black America, you learned quite a bit about patience. It obviously gave me a ton of opportunities to discuss these types of topics, racial topics, um, topics related to the Black community, and to be heard. And I think it was very interesting for people to see why I would go from a Miss America pageant to an all Black pageant, and to be able to really articulate to them why I find them to be both equally important. Um,
And I hope we get to a point where people wouldn't be shocked. Like it's just, you know, there are 50,000 pageants and that should be just another pageant. And, they shouldn't be shocked. It should,
yeah, it's
they wouldn't be
fascinating.
shocked
People don't.
if you did USA. Oh, you did USA. I'm so happy for
Right.
you. You know, you did another pageant. This one just happens to be focused on your ethnicity. So you know, I really, I'm definitely going to raise my kids to not try to see color and try to see the person who inside. I really do believe that um children don't see color and we brainwash them to see color. So it's important to keep them um in that state that everyone is equal and that everyone is given an opportunity. So and I hope that's
Absolutely.
yeah, and I hope that's what your main goal was, that you want everyone, as I'm sure, I knowing you have a big heart. I know you don't want to take things away from anyone. You just want everyone to have an opportunity. Is that how you feel? I don't want to speak for you, but
Um, I mean, in regards to race, I think the most important thing that I would love for people to take away is the ability is really to pick up a book and to read about things that they don't know, and to read about people that they don't know and cultures. And I think the area where there is the greatest disconnect is people not really understanding the historical plight of African Americans, and specifically like the systemic inequalities and barriers that were created and sanctioned and executed by the U.S. government. A lot of people think things are just coincidence or culture or habit, and they don't actually recognize that there were certain things, for example, topics that I would love to see people read about that perhaps they haven't heard about, would be like redlining,
yes.
thinking about the way in which we fund schools, and thinking
Well,
about how that's connected to redlining, or
redlining is
thinking
a huge
about
redlining is a huge thing because until this day, you still, if you live in a black community, and you can't get a good loan because the houses that you're in are all they weren't kept up because they never gave them enough money to fix them up, and they held them down. But people on the other side, they got good loans, they had money to keep the properties well. So yeah, like
of course, and
and
even to
I
like the
hate the red
ability to.
line laws. I hate that so much.
And the thing is, they still very much so affect us today in so
Yes, they
many
do.
different ways. They affect the type of education that you get. They affect that where you are going to dump garbage, where there are garbage disposals where things are seeping into the earth that's affecting the water systems, that's affecting predominantly Black or Brown communities. I mean, it's very much so systemic and cyclical. And I feel like most people are like, oh, this is in their heads. Race isn't an issue anymore. It doesn't matter. And it's, it's not even just a matter of like individuals who kind of harbor this type of discrimination deep down in their hearts, but outside of like the individual day-to-day interactions, which certainly are there, it's the systemic things that were sanctioned by the U.S. government and the way in which race-based systems were written into law,
No, you're
and
right.
how that still affects us today. So I
There are
think
so
that's
many.
a huge part of it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right because there's so many things that our government allowed to happen right after World War II. All that growth out of the cities, dividing the really dividing the line. Anyone on this side of the town is Anglo-Saxon and they get good loans and they can have this community, and then when everybody on the other line is everything else and they get bad loans, they get high credit, all this kind of stuff, and then for you to jump that line you'd have to overcome all of that, and overcome
Absolutely.
overcome all of that is a very big thing, and then to be in a community where you're one culture of all Anglo-Saxons, that's not comfortable either, and you're and so
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
no,
it's
no,
a long history.
I know, and see, and the problem with housing, is that, like you're saying, there may not be a lot of people in power that have ill will towards any culture, but because housing is not something you just clean and you get rid of every 20 years, we have this systemic housing issue that is going to be with us for years, and we basically need to rebuild the housing community to kind of eliminate what we drew up almost 70 years ago, which is such a shame.
Absolutely. And don't get me started on the wealth disparities and where
Oh,
that
I
comes
know, I know. Yeah, I
from.
know. But like, I really disdain the red laws so much. So I'm with you on that way. I definitely, because it has also to do with any culture. They for some reason they thought it was in the best interest to have Anglo Saxons, white people on one side, which is, that's not how you have a great culture. A great culture is when you intermix everyone. You know, the greatest minds in the world are not just pure white people. That they come from every quarter of the world. So,
Right.
and you've proven that. Look how smart you are. So, I just wanted to take one extra second and talk about our sponsor of the week, Mid-Atlantic Video and Photography Production. No matter if you're planning a wedding and you need a wedding videographer, you're doing a music video, or doing a commercial, they are the team to get the job done. You can reach out to them at 443-422-3830. Again, that's 443-422-3830. Or you can go right to their website at mavpp.com. Now let's get right back to this great interview. All right, Brittany, I know this has been a really deep conversation, and I really enjoy it, but it is the time of the show where you get to take over the show and tell us anything that's going on that's important, that you want to highlight. So I know you're not doing pageant right now, so you might not have a public appearance, but maybe you have a girlfriend or a colleague or a friend that you want to help out, or a fundraiser that's important to you. So go ahead and
Yeah,
take up a show.
absolutely. So I think the most important thing for me is just, as always, raising awareness around domestic violence. So October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So, getting people to get involved, visiting your local or state domestic violence shelter, or even on the national levels, the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, see what fundraisers they have going on, what events are happening, and asking people to participate. And of course, if people are interested in learning more about me, they can follow me via my website, www.brittanyleelewis.com. And of course, I'm asking to support the Miss Black America organization. Um, the support behind the current title holder, Ryan Richardson, would be great. She's phenomenal. She's a brilliant young lady. She was also a former Miss DC USA and has competed for several years in the Miss America organization. And she's doing big things right now. So, although I'm not competing, I would love for my pageant sister to have the support as she continues during her reign.
I would agree. She's a phenomenal person. Hopefully, she'll be on the show one day.
Absolutely.
Well, if there's nothing else to promote, I just wanted to say thank you so much for being on the show. And thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out of your day. Would you sum it up by saying that you would encourage young ladies to definitely do a pageant or go out there and cause go for change in any way?
Absolutely. I mean, if I could give any advice to anyone listening right now, it would be don't be afraid. Sign up for that pageant. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain, whether that's a new friend that you make, whether that's a newfound love or appreciation for being on stage, whether that's the ability to really rein in and win an interview. Um, there's just so much to gain from pageantry. So, you know, put your fears aside and just say, hey, I'm going to give this a try.
All right, Brittany, thank you so much for coming on the show. You're always a bright sunshine, sometimes in the dark day, so we appreciate you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much, Brittany, for coming on the show and giving us an opportunity to talk to you and learn more about you and Miss America organization, and especially the Miss Black America organization. It is so important that we treat all cultures with respect and continue to strive to be equal and to give everyone an opportunity. And we really appreciate you going out there and being the voice and the face of um, that strive to do that. And we really appreciate your time on the show. Don't forget, everyone, this show drops every Thursday. So please subscribe to iTunes and on YouTube. Give us a thumbs up, thumbs down. Tell us what we're doing right or wrong. And please stay tuned.